Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix versus Cinema, the podcast that asks the titular question, Netflix versus Cinema, which one should we go to? And we do this in the week in which there has been a little bit of controversy with a very well-known, legendary even, filmmaker who has waded into the whole thing, saying that he's going to have a word with the Academy about pretty much getting rid of Netflix at the Academy Awards. This is in the wake of Roma being the favorite for the Best Picture winner, which it didn't win, and also of Roma winning Best Director and Best Director and Best Cinematography, I think it was. Anyway, before we go any further, I'm going to stop being rude and I'm going to actually introduce myself. My name is Tosin, and I am based in Coventry in the Midlands. And with me, joining me to wade through these things are Sharon.
Hello.
And Sean on the Isle of Wight.
Hiya. Hiya.
Okay, cool. Right, we don't have that much time today or this week, so we're gonna try and crack on with it and just jump into it. So, did you guys hear about this from Steven Spielberg, who is the legendary filmmaker we're talking about? Yeah.
Was it you who sent the link?
Yeah, I sent the link.
Oh, it was Tosin.
Yes, yeah. I sent the link to you.
I haven't really had a chance to look. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was aware of it, but I can understand the point because often these Netflix films are only available on this platform, so they aren't widely available to the cinema-going public in the same way that film is. You know, and you think if it's going to be nominated for these awards, then as many people as possible should have the opportunity to see it. And if it's only on limited release at like 2 cinemas in, West End, then
yeah. I mean,
there should be a better qualifier, shouldn't there, for the awards?
That's right. We've had a bit of a role reversal this week, haven't we, Sharon? Because Sharon's seen loads of movies.
I've been to the cinema a lot.
Yeah, cinema a lot, and I've not been quite so much, but I have spent time on Netflix. But it has been more for documentaries, and I've been watching than it has for actual films and things. Yeah. So it's good. It's got me interested, and I've been watching. Actually, I watched an interesting one on tanks, which was great because it was a bit revisionist and it was saying that the Poles actually had good tanks, but because the Russians, I watched the thing on tanks and I watched the thing on like Einstein's Gruppen and so it's been quite good. So
it's a resource, yeah.
Yeah, it's a resource.
There's a lot there. I admit there's so much on there.
There is so much on there, but I still think the cinema. For me, I was thinking I felt a bit bad that I didn't go to the cinema, but that was just.
That's an immersive experience.
Yeah, I mean, I did go to see Alien, the special edition. They re-released Alien, but we've spoken about that on lots of occasions. So just to say, it's a great movie. So I did see that, and I did see I don't know what sort of film you can call it. I did see Happy Death Day 2, but that's been on a while, isn't it? So,
Happy Death Day to you.
Happy Death Day to you. That's the one.
Yeah.
So I mean, I did see that, but that was purely because a mate wanted to see it, and it's a mate that I don't see very often now. So we went to see it, but it was so good. I went with another friend, John. It was so bad and there was no one else in there, so it was a heckling day, and the film was absolutely awful. The film was it was pants, waste of time. But it made it fun because we could heckle it.
but Sean, you saw the original Happy Death Day, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
But I thought you quite liked that one.
I wasn't overly keen on it. I think I gave it a 2 when we went to see it last time. But it's not really my type of film. And the only reason I went was because as a friend, I thought I'd go under sufferance. But the heckling made it quite good fun. So but that's anyway. We're not going to talk about that one.
Okay, but okay, quickly. Well, you just kind of did. So what would you give Happy Death Day to you?
1 as a film, but I enjoyed it as an enjoyable experience. I would give it, because of how it was, I would give it a night out with my pals. I'd give it a 4.
A 4
for a film to watch, a 1.
But if you want, so you're saying if you want to go heckle with your friends, go watch it. But if you just want to watch a film.
That's exactly right. You nailed it, Toes. You nailed it. Yeah.
I know the sort of films. I know what you're talking about. I think mine for the best of the best 3. Best of the best 3.
Yeah.
That's like it's a brilliant heckle with your friends movie. It's a terrible film, but
yes.
Okay, but so just a quick thing because I don't want to just run off from Mr. Spielberg just quite yet. And so but Sharon, what you were saying about it being a wide release, I think that isn't it the fact that Netflix actually gives films a wider release than cinema can.
I suppose you've got the captive. It's that captive audience, isn't it? It's got a platform of potentially hundreds of millions of viewers. But I think to qualify for an award thing, I think it need to be available to the general populace through cinemas, personally.
But
because to me, it's like the direct-to-video thing. I think in years gone by, if it was a release that went direct-to-video, it wouldn't even qualify for the awards. And there were some cracking films that did get released straight to video back in the day. But I think, to me, it's the same sort of thing. It should be in the same sort of category as back in those days where things didn't get a cinema release, so they didn't get a nod for awards, even though they are good films, admittedly.
Okay, but the thing that I get nowadays is because nowadays we have things like Game of Thrones, and I remember in the last season of Game of Thrones, Sean, you came back after watching the Battle of the Bastards, and you were like, "This is the best battle I have ever seen." Full stop. Whether it's TV, whether it's film, it is the best battle I have seen, hands down. And I'm like,
I agree.
And so I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, so just because that wasn't released in cinemas, you shouldn't be able to talk about that in the same breath as something like Gladiator? That doesn't seem quite right. To me, anyway. I'm like, because Game of Thrones, you look at that, people use the term cinematic, and it's a bit of a weird term because nobody really knows what it means. But essentially,
it has a wide audience, doesn't it? I mean, that's a worldwide audience HBO, as well. HBO,
yeah, it has.
Yeah, I just think, where do you draw the line? You have to have boundaries, and I think sometimes they can be uncomfortable ones. But I think sometimes you need to better distinguish between what qualifies for awards and what doesn't.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Right. I think that it's getting to the point where the line is totally disappearing. Because
because it's getting harder to see it, certainly.
Yeah, because I know the when this happened. Okay, so you had a couple of people who sort of waded into the discussion after Spielberg said, "I'm going to go have a word with the Academy," and pretty much what he said was interpreted as, "I don't want things like Netflix movies to be at the Academy Awards anymore." And obviously, because it's Spielberg, people are going to listen to what he says, and Ava DuVernay, who directed Selma, she wrote, "This is the Board of Governors meeting and regular branch members can be there. But I hope that if this is true, that you have filmmakers in the room or read statements from directors like me who feel differently." Because she says, one of the things I value about Netflix is that it distributes, she says, black work far and wide. And 190 countries, they'll get her latest thing in it. There's a promo for South Africa. She says she has had just one film distributed wide internationally. It was not Selma. It was not A Wrinkle in Time. It was 13th, which was made by Netflix, and that matters. So she's saying she's made this film, put all this work in, but more people are going to see the stuff that she's done with Netflix than are going to see the stuff that she's done in cinemas. And
okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's
because I was worried that it might be a stifling for those independent filmmakers who don't have the backing of someone like Netflix. And you think, well, where do they go? And they want to be, recognized for their work. If they're not backed by one of these behemoth companies, do they still get a chance? Whereas even if it's a small film, if it gets a wide cinema release, then they can be in the running, like something like Leave No Trace.
Leave No Trace last year. Yeah, definitely.
Would that even be a film that would get that sort of backing from a company like Netflix, or would it have to go down the indie route and through the film festivals? And that's where it sort of generates the buzz, even though not many people saw it.
Yeah, I must admit, with the cinema, I mean, you've got like the Cannes Film Festival, you've got the Sundance Festival, you've got all those. And that is a good platform for seeing movies, and because I mean, there's many films like that I've watched and really enjoyed. I mean, American Honey, you know what I mean, Florida Project. I probably wouldn't have even worried about seeing them if they hadn't been sort of won the prizes. Then I probably wouldn't have seen them on Netflix because they probably would have passed me by. So, I mean, I do think Sharon's got a really good point.
There's arguments on both sides. I mean, because I have got this subscription to Netflix, so I am, buying into that being a part of that core audience who is being exposed to films that if they don't get released on the Isle of Wight, or if they, now that it's almost impossible to rent videos, to rent DVDs in the old-fashioned way. I mean, our library still does them, but if you want to just borrow a film without
for me,
foot on the leg, it's
that's
difficult.
it. For me, from a personal point of view at the moment, is I seem to be watching more. I'm not really watching films on Netflix. I seem to be watching more of the documentaries and things like that, which I could probably see on YouTube. So
I think it just happens to be there's a lot on the television for me to watch. So I'm watching the things I record off the television, and then Netflix is when I've got nothing else to watch. So at the moment, my evenings are filled with Great British Sewing Bee. Hello. and Sky Artist, Portrait Artist of the Year. Those things cannot be postponed for an extra day. They have to be watched. So my Netflix viewing has sort of gone down to the bottom of the list.
I've sort of slackened off a bit on the Netflix thing. I mean, I had that month's free subscription, and I thought I'd have one more month. And now it's sort of, I must admit myself, I've been.
I guess the problem is
dipping in and out.
I guess the problem is there's just too many. There's just too much stuff. There's too much stuff.
Yes, too much stuff.
All right, cool.
So this is about. I think this is going to be a debate that will carry on.
Yeah, it will carry on.
Filmmakers and
Quite frankly, I think like there's usually nowadays the same way there's like a Netflix premiere every week. There's a new Netflix versus cinema story every week. But I'll give the final word on this to the response that Netflix said to this, where people were talking about it. It's like, their films aren't really films. And they put out a tweet saying, "We love cinema. Here are some things we also love. Number 1, access for people who can't always afford or live in towns without theaters. Number 2, letting everyone everywhere enjoy releases at the same time. Number 3, giving filmmakers more way to share art. These things are not mutually exclusive." And and it is. So I look at it and I have to say, this is one thing I look at and I feel like, I don't really see why just because something is in a cinema, in a theater, it should qualify for awards. But even though somebody has put in the same amount of work and the same amount of craft and the same amount of expertise into something, just because it's mostly shown on a streaming service, it shouldn't be, that work should not be recognized. I just don't see why. But it's as we said, it will run and run. But now let's go on to one of the things that Steven Spielberg would rather have had was not at the Academy Awards, and it's a film called Period, End of Sentence. And this is a film that won the award for best documentary short subject at the Academy Awards. And I saw this earlier today. It's actually, you guys can find it on Netflix. I think today we're going to go Netflix first, then cinema, then Netflix, then cinema. And it's we saw this on Netflix, and it's only about half an hour long. So, but it's great because it's about all these women in India. I think it's an area of India called Jadpur near Delhi, from the way they speak about. And and as the title of the film is a pun when they say period, end of sentence, because they're talking about periods. And the film kicks off. Yeah, it kicks off with this really, really great sequence. And just one thing I have to say. I would not recommend watching this film while you're eating your lunch, which is what I did. I was watching the film during my lunch break, and there was a bit where I was like, "Oh, good Lord, maybe I shouldn't be eating right now." And I was thinking, well, maybe this is part of the problem they're talking about. Why is this such a taboo? And it's the fact that you have this sequence where they're asking a whole bunch of women about this, and they can't even say the word period. Like they all just sort of like. Essentially, okay, they're all Indian, so they don't blush.
They will speak euphemistically, yeah.
Yeah, but they don't blush. But if they were lighter skinned, they would have been blushing all over the shop because they couldn't say the word. And as it goes on, you find out how this has become such a thing where a lot of women don't have access to like pads. So they talk about the way they've gone about it, how they get ostracized from society, how they say you can't even go into the temple when at that time of the month, you can't do anything like that. But there's a guy who figured out a way of making a low-cost pad. He comes over to their place and he shows them that this is how you go about doing it. This is how you make a pad, and he gives them a machine that can make pads. And so it pretty much starts a whole industry off in this area where all these women come together and start making low-cost pads. and it's given them a freedom of life. It's given them an ability to actually, like, one of them is talking about her dreams, that from the money she's going to do with this, she's going to go train to go to police college, because no woman that she knows has been to police college. And it just becomes this whole other thing that, and I think it's just such, it's a nice, small, little story. It's touching, it's showing, I mean, there's the sequence in the film where the women start making the pads for the first time. And it's one of the most, it's just one of the most euphoric things I think I've seen, where I'm like, oh my God, they're getting a chance to do something for themselves. They're going out there. They're not having a handout. They're actually setting up a thing. It's changing the entire neighborhood. I absolutely loved it, especially because I'm currently working on a documentary series, which is along the lines of something similar about children in Nigeria getting given free heart surgery. And I was watching going, oh yeah, this is along the same lines as trying to help a group of people look after themselves, trying to train them up so that they don't have to rely on handouts. They can have more options than trying to find a man to marry who will then pretty much sort of like run their lives. And I think the film is really good because it doesn't just sort of go, yeah, woman, and forget about the men. They even have bits where they're asking men about, oh, what do you think a period is? And some of the responses are hilarious, scary, and kind of heartbreaking at the same time. that some of the men are just so ignorant as to exactly what this is going on. Is that one of them is like, oh, I think that's an illness. I think it's an illness. Yeah, but I think only women get it. So it's, period, end of sentence. If you have half an hour, I would recommend going to go watch that, and I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. Sounds like an interesting topic. But again, it's a subject I think I think nearly every man I've ever met would shy away from, thinking, hey, I'm not going there. Yeah. It's interesting, how it can really affect women. I think I've been involved in charities before where I think there's one called Pants for Africa, which is about sort of providing underwear and sanitary products for women in difficult situations. And it used to be a thing called, we used to provide dignity bags for women in Syrian refugee camps and displaced people. Dignity bags were basically providing like sanitary products for women who have only the clothes they stand up in. And it's one of those things, I think a lot of women, it resonates with women thinking, how on earth would you cope if you didn't have access to hygiene and all the things that a Western woman has got
that's it.
access to.
It's quite strange we should be talking about this, because it was yesterday I delivered to all the different schools. We had loads of packets of sanitary towels, which were I guess they're going to give them out with the schools. There's
the thing, isn't there, about period poverty, they call it, about girls who can't go to school because they can't afford to.
So they there was big boxes of them.
That plays a part in this film as well. But I think I would recommend watching it. I think it's just
so there's one man don't mind talking about.
You don't mind. You've all read those.
I talked all of the stuff, have I? Oh right.
Well, I'm glad.
So 4 is a
4-star, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really, really good because they talk about the fact that they can go to school and all that as well. But I just think I love seeing things that just help people get themselves out of the situation that they're in. And
you don't want to be the people saying, "Here, let us help you." It's like, no, you help yourself.
Oh, good Lord!
And empower people to do it. Yeah.
I much prefer that. And this was right up my street. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking about it, and we're going to go on to. So that was Netflix doing its usual coming out swinging, and now we'll go to cinemas. And Sharon, you went to see On the Basis of Sex, similarly female empowering sort of topic.
Yes, this is basically like a film biopic of a woman. I think if you're American, you'd probably know her more than I didn't really know who this woman was. I sort of vaguely had heard the name, but if you said to me, who is she? I wouldn't have been able to tell you. Mm-hmm. But it's a sort of biopic of a lady called Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was educated at Harvard Law in the 1950s. And it starts off with the brick wall that she came up against as a woman studying the law. The people would ask her, why are you taking a man's place? And when you go to work, why would you be taking a man's job? And they would just not see that she was a woman who was more than capable of actually running a career. And ironically, at the time when she was going through law, she was married with a child. So she had it was like, you know, why aren't you at home being a mother, and why are you wasting your time doing this, and you know, why are you being unnatural? And this is, and the sort of the unnaturalness of it is a theme that comes up throughout the film, is that, you know, every time she comes up against the establishment, you know, she's practically been treated like she's unnatural for being a woman who is highly intelligent, motivated, and wants to work in the law.
Yeah.
And the story progresses basically as how, as she graduates from, well, she wants to graduate from Harvard, but her husband has got a job in New York, and so she wants to transfer her degree to study at Columbia. And you can still graduate from one university, but you just transfer your degree to another university.
Yeah, that whole American thing that nobody over here gets.
No one understands it. But apparently she wanted to graduate from, she had 1 year to do for her Harvard law degree, but she wanted to transfer to Columbia to finish it. And they basically said, well, no. She said, well, a man has done it in the past. He said, well, they've got right to. You don't need your degree. You're a woman. You can. You can't, basically.
What sort of era is it?
It starts off in the 1950s.
So it's the 50s, right? Okay.
Yeah, and it goes right through to the 1970s.
70s, right?
But in the end, she actually does transfer to Columbia. She completes her law degree at Columbia, plus she also completes her Harvard law degree. So she ends up with 2 degrees, one from Harvard and one from Columbia.
Cool.
And then when she tries to get a job, she faces all these law firms who basically won't employ her. She goes to 14 law firms, none of them who will employ her, even though she's got a degree from Harvard and from Columbia. So she ends up teaching law.
So this is the kind of film where, because as you said, people who, especially Americans, would know who Ruth Bader Ginsburg is, because you know this is a story that kind of has a happy ending because she ends up on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
So so I'm guessing that this is a film that is more about showing you what she had to go through to get there.
Yeah.
So
how
the tension is not whether she's going to make it. It's more, oh my God, what did she have to go through?
How did she get there? Yes. And I think there's one basically test case that she does, that she couldn't get a job in a law firm working as a lawyer. She started teaching law, and she specialized in sex-based discrimination.
Yeah.
And there's one case that comes to her where a man has been discriminated on the basis of his gender, that he's a full-time carer for his elderly mother, and he's not allowed to claim tax because the tax rebates only apply to female carers or widowed men. It doesn't apply to a never married man.
Oh, wow.
And so they take this case to the courts to say, look, this is gender-based discrimination where the man is the victim. And again, they use the argument that it's unnatural for a never married man to look after his mother. It's not his role to do that. And so she basically is fighting the case. And you see her looking at different instances in American law where gender-based discrimination is in law, and they actually her opponents in this case actually provide her with a whole list saying, look, this is the precedent in law. There's like 150 laws in the American canon that discriminates on the basis of sex. And so she said, well, I think we should take them down one by one, basically. So you get this court battle,
okay,
about trying to overturn this discrimination.
So does it become a courtroom drama?
Yes, there does an element of that. Yes, and then yes, so that most of it is this tension of getting this case to court and then the court case itself. So that's the primary emphasis of this, is following this one particular case. That in her life, it was pivotal in the turning point in her life that led to her getting her own place in the Supreme Court. Oh
yeah, cool. And also with that, so this stars Felicity Jones as Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Arnie Hammer as her husband. What are the things like, the performances?
Oh, they're very convincing. I don't know what this lady actually sounds like or what she looks like, but you get the feeling that she was a little lady. You see the. Yes, so I think they're both obviously not knowing, they're obviously based on real people. So had I had any experience of who these people were, I think it might have shaded your sort of assessment of it. But I thought they were both very well done, very convincing. Obviously, she's one of these, a little battler. She's had to battle for everything, and that comes across. She is a fighter, and where he's almost like a golden boy, where everything, he does work hard, but everything seems to be so much not easier for him. But he's like the youngest man from a partner. He got off a job in a really prestigious firm. Yeah, he does have he does suffer from cancer when he's studying for his law degree. Yeah. and you see him sort of going through that. But then she's a battler, so she actually goes to his classes as well as her own.
Oh, right, gotcha.
But they're both very charismatic, and you see how even though they're polar opposites, he's like this tall, handsome man, and she's like this small, sort of fighty battler. But they sort of work together. They're like opposites that just make a whole.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought their performances are very charming.
Oh, and so what would be your final verdict on it, and how many stars would you give it?
My final verdict was, even though I thought it was very well done, very well engaged, because I didn't feel that it was my history, I didn't feel actually any emotional connection to it. So I didn't feel that sense of injustice, because I'm thinking, well, they talk all the way through the film about the Constitution, about American law, about the Supreme Court, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, this is not my history.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, go for it, girl. I want you to do well, but I didn't feel emotionally connected to it. So I would say to me, it was almost like it was an interesting film.
Okay.
And I was interested in their performances, but I wasn't moved by it, and I didn't sort of feel deeply motivated by it. I wasn't stirred up to outrage or stirred up to sort of sadness at any point. So I would give it a 3 because I thought it was an interesting film, though I didn't find it particularly, to me, gripping or entertaining. It was interesting though, and worth a sit through just to sort of see what this lady went through. But to me, I didn't feel emotionally connected to it in any way at all, really. So I'd give it a 3.
So not even like how you mentioned about Moneyball last week, where you have you don't care about baseball, but you really enjoyed that film. It doesn't even go up to that level of, I don't know anything about this, but I still really enjoy it as a film.
To me, not quite. I mean, I felt where it was to me, it's too much about the American Constitution and about this sort of the American system, how it was all geared up against these women. They're like the little man against the big giant. And I just thought, to me, it didn't resonate with me as my culture and was my history. So I just felt it was interesting and on an intellectual level. But it made me think, I wonder what happened in my country or what happened in right. So that made me more interested to find out more about my own history as a sort of, British person. But I didn't find this film was, for me, it didn't score on entertainment level. It was more of an intellectual thing that I was interested in.
All right, cool.
So it was interesting, but yeah, not up there with anything. I wouldn't sort of give it, I think, more than a 3 personally.
All right, cool, good. Sean, are we ready?
But it's a good film, well made.
Yeah, it's going now. It seems to be going all right. I keep looking at it. So
okay, cool.
It's going fine now. It's going fine.
All right, cool. No
I don't know what happened there. It sort of went and turned off while Sharon was speaking, and
that's why I always have a backup, because you can't trust
good.
Can't trust technology. Netflix.
No.
Anyway, all right. Recording issues aside, now Sean, we come to you because you said that you saw a film called Chosen on Netflix this week.
I did, yeah.
And you didn't sound that happy about this film, but just go ahead and tell us why.
Okay, well, I'll tell you a little bit what the film's about. I was interested. It was Harvey Keitel because I really like Harvey Keitel, and basically, I'm pretty sure they put some makeup on. His son sort of turns up, and he decides to tell him the story about this sort of Pole that is. He just sort of works in that. He's a.
By Pole, you mean somebody from Poland?
Yeah. He's like a lawyer.
Yep.
And but he manually works, and obviously with the occupation and what have you, and things. And he's. So
is the story that he's telling him? Is this set during the World War II or something?
World War II, yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
cool.
yeah. I've been on my World War II fix a little bit, and I have to say it was one of those films. I think, to be honest, although I saw it, I wasn't really. I was like, it was okay, but it didn't grab me straight from the start. Sometimes I can watch a film and it grabs me straight away, and I think, yeah, this is going to be interesting. But basically, it's a story about this guy who's sort of well respected. He's got his wife. His wife dies, and his wife's sister gets thrown on a camp. So. And then he dresses up as I thought it was really, really silly. Like I am with my films. It was really silly on the fact that he dresses up as a German officer and pretends to be a German general. And he goes and he says, "Oh, I want to know what's happened to this girl who's after his wife's sister." And so he ends up going and pulling himself off as a general. And people sort of believe him. So I think it's based on a true story, but
I was like, oh, I can't really see. You know, like sometimes you see in films where they go, like the people go, dressed up as Germans, and they say, "What's your name, rank, and serial number?" and all that.
Great Escape.
And they go, that Great Escape, that sort of stuff. You know, because I still think, I mean, for me, from a personal point of view, I used to steward at a football ground like that, and even if this happened to me once, like some famous footballer, I won't say who it is, but I was sort of on the door like that, and I said, "Oh, can I see your ID?" He goes, "Don't you know who I am?" And I said, "No, I'd like to see your ID, please." And he got really, really funny, and it got really argy-bargy, you know.
Yeah.
But so it really annoys me in films when they dress up, and you know,
and no one checks.
They're never questioned. They're like, "Whoa, smarten yourself up," and all that. So it sort of switched me off from this. But anyway, in the end, he sort of he ends up in the ghetto, and he builds like a resistance up to fight. So it's just like a little bit of a resistance film. It's not really. I can't really say much more than that, except I was really, really disappointed with Harvey Keitel, and not really a film for me. I'm just going to give it a 2-star, I suppose, just for the novelty factor. So I mean, that's all I can really say about this. I wouldn't, you know, but there you go. That's what they are.
You see, I can just hear it in your voice. I can just hear the disappointment. You're like, I'm even tired of talking about this. I do not want to talk about this anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to give this film any more exposure than it already has.
That's it. I don't know if there's any famous. There's no real famous actors in it apart from Harvey Keitel, I think.
But Harvey Keitel, is he based in sort of like present day, telling a story about World
he's
War
present.
II?
Yeah, he's telling the story to like his grandson. Yeah, he's got like
gotcha.
I don't know if he's got like the heavy makeup on or what. So, but,
why does he not look like himself or something?
Yeah, he totally looks like himself.
He's aged up.
He's just aged up. I think he is aged up. I mean, he's getting on a bit. Isn't he? Not Winston Wolfe there, but I think they've aged him a little bit more. And for me, the aging process is looks a bit too make-uppy. That's what I thought. My impressions were, he's made up. Well, you know, so straight from the start, really, you know, it was like. I had my issues with it. Although I think it's probably you know, some other people might enjoy it, but for me, from a personal point of view,
wasn't quite your cup of tea.
Quite my cup of tea.
But think about it, Sean. You either see Harvey Keitel in that, or you see him in a Direct Line advert. So it's up to you. You choose what you get your Keitel.
That's right. Yeah. We'll get a race. Yeah, Winston Wolfe, great guy.
Okay,
I like him. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for Harvey Keitel and his movies, but this one,
the piano.
didn't do it. So,
he would have thought he would be a romantic lead, but in the piano, he is.
Yeah. That's it.
Anyway, okay. So
let's move on.
The next big thing you're probably going to see Harvey Keitel in is actually a Netflix film, The Irishman with Martin Scorsese, which is
okay.
Yeah, because I think it'll be interesting if Steven Spielberg actually gets Netflix kicked out of the Academy Awards. That's going to be hard because this Martin Scorsese movie is being spoken about for Academy Awards next year. And so, yeah, it's going to be funny.
I think they should. I think maybe they should have their own. They should have like an awards ceremony for streaming services. You know, in the same sort of way. So you could have your Amazon Prime, you could have your Netflix, you could have your Now TV, whatever, and they could give awards for that. So, you know, or HBO or whatever the different productions are.
Yeah.
So
Stars,
surely a better platform would be a separate awards program.
Hulu as well? Hulu and Stars?
Yeah, and Stars and, all the different streaming ones. And then maybe that would be like some of the other companies would start pushing some stuff. And they say, okay, the Netflix Film Award goes to Martin Scorsese for whatever film, The Irishman or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? They could do it that way or say...
No, but then the problem is that would be saying that a Martin Scorsese movie that was made and put on Netflix is lesser, in inverted commas, than a Steven Spielberg movie. So
I don't see how that. I can't see that how that would be, because it would be saying it's still a great movie, but you just watch it on streaming service rather than at the pictures. But it still wins an award. It wins a Streamy Award or a White Walker Award or whatever, you know. So,
okay. So for instance,
sorry, Toes, go on.
I was going to say, okay, so for instance, if we had The Ballad of Buster Scruggs versus, let's say, Ready Player One, you would say those two films should be in two different award ceremonies.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, I do.
Oh, all right, interesting.
I do.
Well, I think with the Golden Globes, they sort of are like more of a pan award thing, can't they? They cover all streamers and media and film and television, don't they?
But the Golden Globes are a joke.
I mean, the Oscars is the Academy of Motion Pictures.
Yes.
The Academy of Motion Pictures. So, you know, I suppose you could say that Netflix streaming stuff is motion pictures.
Yeah, those are motion pictures.
This week we'll go around it, yeah.
I think there should be different platforms, so I have to agree with Spielberg.
It is swings and roundabouts, I think, sometimes with this, isn't it? What you gain on the swings, you lose on the roundabouts.
But that's me.
Yeah. All right, cool. Okay, cool. We're going to move on because I have a feeling we're going to be coming back to this at some point. Anyway, so Sharon, we go into the film that you saw in the cinemas this week, The Aftermath.
Yes, The Aftermath.
Oh, I'm interested about this.
So following on, The Aftermath is a dual meaning in this. Basically, The Aftermath is post-war Germany. You start the film in October of 1945. So basically, the war has only been over for 5 months, and you see the character played by Keira Knightley goes to rejoin her husband, who's a colonel, part of the reconstruction process, and they're based in Hamburg. Now, Hamburg in 1943 was one of those cities that was bombed so severely that it caused a firestorm, and, you know, literally thousands of inhabitants of that town were killed. And so they're facing a fierce opposition as part of this reconstruction, resentment that that they've lost the war.
Yep.
And then into this woman moves in, and the house of this big house has been requisitioned for this colonel and his wife to live in. And what normally happens is when a house is requisitioned, the occupants are then moved into a camp until they can sort of find themselves a new home. But they decide, in the spirit of reconciliation, that they're going to let the former owners of the house, the former tenants of the house, to stay in the attics, basically, and they create their own like flat in the attics.
Yeah.
And the former occupant is played by Alexander Skarsgård.
Ooh. I wonder what's going to happen there.
Boy, isn't he?
Yes. And so you have the aftermath that refers as well as the aftermath of the war, it refers to as a tragedy that hit the family, the colonel and his wife, in that their son was killed during the bombing raids on London in 1942. And it also refers to the aftermath in that Alexander Skarsgård's wife was killed in the bombing raids on Hamburg in 1943. So they're both dealing with the aftermath of war, you know, at a personal cost, as well as the cost to their country, the fact that they've lost their identity, that Hitler had become so all-consuming that, you know, every home in Germany had a portrait of the Führer in their house. And you see anywhere they go in, they look, you see this shot that pans across the wall, and there's like a space where a painting once hung. And you get the feeling that painting was there for years, because there's like a shadow around this hole on the wall. And it's where they've all had to take down the picture of the Führer. So it's like the war is this shadow over the whole film.
All right.
So, and then you follow these two streams as well. You see the dealing with the reconstruction and how there's like this 8-8 organization, which is, you know, Nazis who don't want to admit defeat. And you see a storyline involving them and how they're determined to carry on the war even though the Führer's dead. And then you also got this other strand of this unhappy marriage where she seeks solace with someone else.
And seeing as she's living in the same house as Alexander Skarsgård, I wonder what's going to happen.
Yes.
I mean, who could she possibly find solace with?
Yes, someone who's, you know, sensitive and architect. So if he's an artist, there's a piano in the house and they both love music. What's not to love, basically?
Can I ask is there
ask a question.
So can I ask some questions? Right, okay. It seems really, really romantic. Is there much about the reconstruction? Because when I first saw the trailer for this, I was interested because that period of reconstruction. Yeah. But when I saw as you know, I'm not a big Keira Knightley fan, and I'm not that other guy. I'm not.
It does deal with both. There are storylines involving this sort of like, I was calling it like Hitler Youth, but he's a Hitler Youth who doesn't want to let go of the past. Okay. And so you see this 8-8 organization. I don't know if they're called 88 or whatever, but there's 8-8 is the 8th letter of the alphabet, which is H, and then 8-8 is Heil Hitler. So they have it burned on their arms. Oh, right, okay. And so you do see this sort of the 88 people fighting, and you see how they're clearing rubble and they come across bodies, and how there's some of the British soldiers are like, you know, when they're interviewing people, they're showing them pictures of the death camps and they're saying, did you know about these death camps? And a lot of the civilians were saying, no, in Hamburg, we didn't see this. So you get the tension between the people who are sympathetic, they want to reconstruct Germany, and the people who say, no, these people need to be punished for putting us through 6 years of war. We didn't ask for this war and we won. So, suck it up, chum. So you've got that tension between the sort of bullish victors and those who want to actually reconstruct.
Okay.
So you've got that, and you've also got this romantic storyline as well. So you have got these parallel stories going next to each other.
Okay, because it sounds
obviously
like
I was more interested in the romantic one.
Yeah, it sounds intriguing, but it does sound as if the romantic one is pushed more to the fore. Like all the advertising and everything like that seems to be pushing this sort of love triangle type film.
Yes, I think that's certainly the feeling I got when I went to see it. Was I thought this was going to be more about the romance than the reconstruction.
Yeah.
And I think to some degree, the fact that it was split between the two, I think both some slightly suffered in it. I think if it was all about the relationship, then you'd be more invested in the relationship. And if it was more about the reconstruction, then it would be, so it's almost like they wanted to put two films in one.
Right.
Yeah.
And they wanted to beef up, by trying to beef up the reconstruction storyline, they added the romance, but I think they both slightly suffered from it.
Right,
I think if it was a romantic film, you'd be fully invested in what's going on in this relationship, and if it was about reconstruction with the family in the background, you'd be more invested in the lives of the people who are having to live in this rubble, and that it's been surrounded by rubble for 4 years for some of them from the bombing raids of the early war.
Yeah.
So I think both aspects of the story did suffer from it slightly by the fact that you're torn between these two stories that are parallel but that don't exactly meet altogether comfortably.
So how many stars would you give it?
Well, I enjoyed certain aspects of the film very much. I thought Keira Knightley, even I'm not a fan, did very well. I thought Alexander Skarsgård was, Alexander Skarsgård. But I did find Jason Clarke as like the third bar in this triangle. I think he needs to be stronger. I thought he needed to be more charismatic. I mean, if you're going to have someone who's in competition with Alexander Skarsgård, they've got to have something going for them, haven't they? They've got to be real competition. And to me, I didn't feel that he offered enough competition.
The things with Jason Clarke, isn't it? I'm
yes.
just looking.
Yeah.
Do you know what? He is pants as an actor. I don't care what anyone says. I have not seen him anything good, and he's put me off everything he's been in. Absolutely everything he's been in.
He plays a good solid lead in this, but I think he's just not charismatic. If you're rooting for, because it's
Sean, you liked Everest though.
You go.
Yeah, Everest was all right, but I didn't like him in it too much. I just don't like the guy. I just don't think. To me, I think it was when they stuck him in as John Connor. I think probably.
Yeah,
Terminator Genesis, and after that, it was like because he was pants in that. And
nobody came out of that looking good.
Yeah,
no, that's true. But
I just thought
him in particular.
I thought in this film, if I put someone else in this role, someone who's like a man in their 40s, and I was thinking, if you put Tom Hardy in this role, for example, playing him against type, you would definitely have that tension between, who will she choose? And you'd feel that there's a strong appeal for both men. And I didn't, to me, whenever she was with him, I thought, I don't get it. I don't get what you see in this man. And so to me, her having an affair was completely understandable.
Nice one.
But you want it to be, you think there's a history with them. They've had a child together. They've got a life together. They should be a bit more of a pull for him. He should be balanced. So for me, that was a bit of a drawback. So I would have to say, to be harsh with it, I would probably give it a 3. I'd wanted to give it a 3.5, but I'm thinking, no, I think it's a 3 because there's enough of things about it that you're thinking you weren't strong enough to be a viable contender.
All right.
Because it's like, choose Alex.
Okay. We're going to stop this Jason Clarke character assassination and move on.
That was the aftermath. Yeah, so it's 3 for the aftermath.
3 for the aftermath. All right, cool. Poor Jason Clarke. It's not his fault. All right, we're going to go to Isn't It Romantic? And this is a Netflix movie starring Rebel Wilson. And this is one of those films that, a bit like, I know we spoke about I Feel Pretty, which was an Amy Schumer film where a woman sort of like hits, she has an accident and then spends the rest of the film thinking that she's like this supermodel and all that kind of stuff. But this film is different because it starts off in Australia with Rebel Wilson and a girl who looks like you imagine Rebel Wilson would have looked as if she was a girl. So she's a bit heavy and all that. Her mum is played by Jennifer Saunders. and who pretty much does like
Okay.
a one scene cameo. And she's watching Pretty Woman on the TV, and she's watching and she's like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And her mom walks in and is like, you do realize that never happens for girls like us, right? She's like, what are you talking about? And her mom essentially tells her, romantic comedies are a whole bunch of rubbish. We don't end up with that kind of woman. We don't end up with a guy. Nobody comes to rescue us. Essentially, romantic comedies are rubbish. And she grows up in life thinking this is all rubbish, not really into romance or anything like that. She ends up, you jump 25 years into the future, and she is now an architect in New York. She has, there's this whole thing that she goes into at the beginning where one of her co-workers absolutely loves romantic comedies and is watching The Wedding Singer while at work. And she sort of goes into this scene where they just keep cutting, and for the whole day she just berates her and tells her and dissects the romantic comedy and tells you exactly what is so wrong with the romantic comedy, why it's a whole bunch of rubbish. So she goes through the whole thing, says this is why it's a whole bunch of rubbish. And then she has an accident, hits her head, and she wakes up and she's still in New York, but everything looks nicer. And she finds herself pretty much in a romantic comedy. So the New York that she goes, she's like, what's up? Why does everything smell like lavender? Why does New York not smell anymore? And she's
in a Hallmark film, basically, isn't she?
Pretty much she's in a Hallmark film. So she wakes up in the hospital and she goes, where am I? They're like, you're in the emergency room. She's like, no, this is not the emergency room. Why is this room so big? Where's the like, the druggie in the corner? Where's the person who just got shot, who's getting wheeled through? It's like, and she says, this is then after a while she realizes, oh my God, I'm in a, and she tries to swear, and then you hear like, I'm in a romantic comedy, and she realizes that she's like, I'm in a PG-13 romantic comedy. And it's quite funny because it does some stuff where it just makes fun of how silly romantic comedies are, and the fact that they always filmed in New York, but there's a whole bunch of things that don't happen. She meets Liam Hemsworth, who in her real life is this client who she's supposed to be pitching something to as an architect, but in the romantic comedy world, he nearly runs over with his car, comes on and immediately falls in love with her. And she's like, what's going on? This is not right. And he's like, no, don't worry. You are beguiling. You are my woman. Then he does things like, I'll give you my number. And he takes a rose and writes one number on each petal, then takes the petals and gives them to her. And she's like, they're not even in order. How am I going to know what your number is? And he's like, don't worry, fate will find us. And so there's bits of it that remind me a little bit of Enchanted, like the way Enchanted makes fun of the whole Disney princess thing.
Yeah.
But I think Enchanted...
It sounds like every Christmas Hallmark film I've ever seen, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And so it's like the whole idea is putting a cynical person in one of those films, and she's trying to figure out, how do I get out of this? How do I get back to my real life? Because this is rubbish. This isn't true. Especially because she doesn't like romance. She hates romantic comedies and all that. And there's bits at the beginning where they do a lot of stuff where it's quite clever, the way they skewer the romantic comedy and they talk about what is so crazy about them and why on earth are these things so big and all. But the problem is the film ends up becoming a romantic comedy on its own. So it's almost kind of as if it says, all right, cool, you don't like romantic comedies, this is everything that's wrong with them. But for the character, the only way for Rebel Wilson to get out of this romantic comedy is to commit to it.
Okay.
Yeah, is to commit to it. It's like playing a game. You've got to get that and so you've got to commit to it. And she's like, oh, there's probably going to be a wedding that I'm going to have to break up and all that. And so there's I would.
It sounds really fun.
I think it's fun. Like and some of my favorite things are like the little sort of Easter egg things in the background. So obviously they're in New York, and even the road signs are. The road signs I think are hilarious because they don't focus on them, they don't give them a close up, but the things that they say on them is just crazy. Like there's a bit she runs into a subway, runs past a poster, and on the poster, you know how they say like, see it, say it, sort it, or something like that. Yeah. This poster says, see someone, say something. You could be his wife one day. So it's like so I think it's quite funny in bits. There are some bits that made me laugh out loud, but I feel like in the end it tries to have its cake and eat it, and it kind of devolves into a romantic comedy anyway. And so it's trying to go, oh, look at us, yeah, we're only doing this ironically. But I think, yeah, you just
couldn't resist the pull of the happy ending.
Yeah, exactly. You've kind of become a romantic comedy, and even though they're trying to say this is the real world, this is the romantic comedy world, I still think that their real New York is still a very Hollywood New York. So it's it's one of those things. But Liam Hemsworth does this. He is quite funny in it. I would give it a 3 out of 5.
Oh wow, good. Yeah. I shall check that one out, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think you should check it out. It's obviously it's on Netflix. Sean, I think it's probably just going to be like not even acknowledging that it exists.
Well, I don't know. It's funny. Amy Schumer, Trainwreck. I went to see that. That was one of the ones I went to cinema to see. That actually, funny enough, and I really enjoyed that. I thought that was quite good. So I haven't seen the what was the one? The Amy Schumer one you just said?
I Feel Pretty.
I Feel Pretty. Yeah. But I mean, it's probably one that's not going to be on my radar too much. I won't definitely.
But if you stumble across it,
if I stumble across it one
you
day,
won't kick it out. You'll step over and pick it up.
Maybe we'll watch it together, Sharon. Romantic comedies. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Yeah.
We'll see. All right, cool. So the next thing up is Happy Death Day to You, which you've already spoken about, Sean, and you gave it a nice resounding 1.
One. Yeah, I have to say, yeah, it was a major disappointment. So, I mean, it just sort of, it's like a time travel one, so it carries on, but there's it's these geeks, and they've created a machine that sort of puts in a different dimension, but it's in a different dimension where her mum's actually alive. The main character, where her mum's still alive. So, does she stay there, or does she have to go back, or is she going to suffer loads of deaths? Because each time there's more and more deaths. It's going to eventually going to end up.
But generally speaking, at the end of the day, Sean's just left not caring.
I'm not caring. Yeah, I don't care one way or the other.
Just die.
So, just die. I mean, I think I have to. I know I shouldn't say this really, but like the sort of killer thing that wears this funny little mask actually looks like someone I know, or someone. Me and well, no, it doesn't. It's just a similar. And I mentioned that. I said, "Oh, that looks like so and so, doesn't it?" Like that, and it was just great guffaws of laughter. And he goes, "Oh my god!" So it does. So so that was quite funny. So but I mean, apart from the fun factor, I mean, for a fun film to heckle, you nailed it, Tozy, when you said, it's okay to heckle, but no, I wouldn't even bother. Would you? It's not something you'd ever watch anyway, is it? You wouldn't ever bother with it, would you?
I don't really. Well, I heard good things about the first one. I heard that because I don't like horror movies, but I heard good things about the first. They said that it was actually kind of clever, and
it was a clever. Yeah, it was a bit of a twist there. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I think they're just trying to make money, aren't they?
And so
if something makes money, they do another one.
Yeah, and so far I'd heard good things about the second one until you spoke, so maybe now I probably won't bother.
You know me.
but let's
go. I always come a bit left field, don't I? I'm always sort of,
And you demand a lot from your horror films, don't you?
I do. I really do. I need to see something that I haven't seen I haven't seen a decent horror film I can't remember when. So, but anyway.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
Moving on.
There's a Stephen King adaptation on Netflix called Gerald's Game.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I would actually be interested to see if you watch that and tell me what you think about that. I think it's more thriller. It's more thriller than horror, but I think that for a very simple premise, they do really well with that. But now let's go into something that I think you enjoyed a little bit better: Generation War.
Yep. Oh yeah, Generation War. Now this was a 3-part miniseries. I mean, it was a few years old now. I think it was 2013 when it was made. I remember I used to catch the odd clips of this on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like YouTubes, they have these little bits because obviously I'm really interested in war stuff. So I thought, I'd watch it as it's 3-part, and our rules. We must see the whole.
If you're watching a TV series, you must have seen the whole series before you come on here and talk about it.
So and basically this story is about, it's like 5 friends, and there's like a girl who wants to be a singer. That's all she's got her mindset on. She wants to be a singer, but she's got this little bit of a relationship going with a Jewish fella who's one of their friends, and there's this idealistic, like, what you would say, whatever the ladies' equivalent of the Hitler Youth was, you know what I mean? She's got the pigtails and that very much. German.
Oh yeah, the
Magdenfree or whatever they were called.
Yes, the German maidens, weren't they? But there was
yes, very very that way with the
Deutschen Maidens or something
like that.
Yeah,
and then you've got these 2 brothers, one who's really again idealistic and everything else, and the other one who's a bit skeptical, but they've got to go off to war.
Yeah.
and the mother's upset and all that. So anyway, before this, they all go their separate ways. They meet up and they have this photograph taken. Well, and then so the two brothers go off to war. They're like an infantry unit or
yeah.
And the idealistic girl with the pigtails becomes a nurse at the front, and the other girl, she wants to become a singer, so she has a bit of a thing with, because they're not really, they're not supposed to have relationships with Jewish people.
No.
So basically they all go this different way, and it's all these different stories with they all end up the singer, the one who wants to be the singer, she has an affair with like a Gestapo officer, so she can hopefully save her Jewish friend. So,
okay.
And they have to cut the picture out of one of the photographs that they've had.
This is a German film.
Yeah, German film. Yeah.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah, and anyway, and things happen. I'm really interested more. So you go through all these different periods, and there's like 3 episodes. Which
an hour and a half long, so they're proper films.
Proper films, yeah. So each one, and it's funny how the characters change. So obviously the nurse decides she's in love with one of the brothers, the older brother, the idealistic brother. But as the films go on, as the different episodes go on, it's like a bit of a role reversal. So the one who was skeptical just becomes like a bit, should we say, dangerous even, and he just decides, he sort of resigns to his fate. And the other brother who was sort of, Nazi, he becomes a bit skeptical. And the nurse, obviously, she's seeing all these wounded people and the people screaming and all stuff. So obviously there's lots of other plots going on, and it goes through different periods of the war. And I've got to be honest, I did really, really enjoy this.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, yeah. I thought it was quite good. From the stuff I know of the war and everything like that, it was quite good of seeing the different periods and how they start off all idealistic. Yeah, let's go, and all the time it comes up with these places, 500 miles from Moscow, 300 miles from Moscow, and then gradually through the other ones it's 300 miles from Berlin.
And they're in retreat, yeah.
So yeah, when they're in retreat. So it goes through the whole war, and I won't tell you what happens to but obviously some they think are dead, so certain things happen, and it's really
very well done.
Yeah, to me, I think this is a really good series, and it's worth a watch. I mean, I watched pretty much one after the other.
Excuse me.
Yeah, so yeah, I would.
Who's
say
rated?
This is quite high. Yeah, it comes quite high on my rating scale.
It's always interesting to turn it around, though, isn't it? Because we're quite familiar with our war stories. It's nice to see a German war story, I think.
I mean, yeah, it is, and I think those films from a German point of view, I don't know if it's, some people are saying that it's trying to be a bit
revisionist.
Yeah, a bit revision, but sort of apologise for saying like, not all Germans were horrible Nazi types, So
yeah.
No.
So yeah, apologetic almost,
Yeah.
I mean, I personally don't think it was, but I know that I could understand why
yeah.
some people would think that, It's like,
There's I've seen some really good German films about the war, and I think they deal with it in a completely different way. And I think there's some interesting ones out there.
Downfall.
Downfall's a great film. Downfall
is probably one.
I saw one from a woman's perspective. It's called Anonyma,
wow.
Eine Frau in Berlin.
Yeah.
And I've read the book, actually, in translation, of course. But this is a German film, and it's basically about what happened to the women in Berlin when the Russians invaded, and how they were just utterly brutalised, some of them, and how it was a secret that they couldn't talk about because of the way they were treated.
Yeah.
And this one woman wrote this book, Anonyma, about recounting her ordeal at the hands of these Russian soldiers. And the people accused her of lying and making it all up. And she only actually revealed her identity, I think as late as like 2000 or something. But she could not admit the fact that she'd been brutalised by Russian soldiers. So I'd say Anonyma, try to find that film. That's an extraordinary film about a German woman's experience of war.
Right, okay.
All right.
There was
fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Oh, just thinking back, there was a couple of bits in it. There was one particular bit in the last one. Which
the last episode.
Last episode, which I was like, when the Russians come in, so I wasn't sure if that would have happened. But hey, anyway, but on the whole, I really enjoyed it. So I would give, as I say, on the whole series, I would give it a 4.
Cool.
So I'd probably say the first episode a 4, second episode a 4, probably third episode possibly a 3. But on the whole, it gets a 4. Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
So,
good stuff.
I enjoyed it.
Good stuff. All right, cool. And now we finish off with The Kid Who Would Be King. I went to see this.
Yes, see, this one intrigues me.
Yes.
Tell us more, please.
Okay, all right. So this is Joel Cornish, whose last film was Attack the Block, which was aliens coming to a South London estate. And so he did sci-fi in a South London estate. And now he's trying to do the similar trick, but with fantasy. So it's the whole idea of, imagine you take the whole legend of King Arthur and transplant it to, well, South London. And it's... This film, I love the way this film starts, because this film starts off with an animated sequence, and the animated sequence pretty much kind of like it's one of those things that just puts you in the mood and goes, okay, yes, now, okay, cool, now you've got me, tell me more. So it talks about the whole Arthur thing and how Arthur came up and how Uther Pendragon was there, and Arthur took the sun from the stone, and then Morgana Le Fay and all that sort of stuff. Then and I love the opening, and then it ends with a line from Morgana Le Fay as she's being vanquished, saying, "Don't worry, one day when the nation is leaderless and nobody knows what's going on and there's fighting between all different factions, I will rise again." And I'm like, uh-oh. and I'm like,
the once and future king.
Exactly. So they use this whole "what's the future king." So I think that they're doing a bit of a clever thing with like looking at the times that we're in and saying, "Why would this thing happen all over again?" And so there's definite Brexit overtones, as to what happens. That means that why would this happen all over again? Why would Morgana Le Fay happen all over again? And they're like, oh, because the nation is rudderless and leaderless once more, and so it goes into the modern day, and you find out that this story that you've heard that you've seen has been animated is actually a storybook that this kid Alex Elliott has been reading. And he's been reading, his mum has given it to him, saying it was the last thing he got from his dad. It has an inscription in the front that says, "To Alex, my once and future king," in it and all that. And yes. So he goes to school and there's some bullies. There's some bullies. His best friend is a kid of South Asian origin called, who everybody just calls Bedders. So that's his best friend, Bedders, who's like really, really loyal to him. There's these two bullies who bully him and his friend called Lance and Kay. And... So I think for anybody who knows the literature like you do, Sharon, I know that you're probably already going, oh, yeah, I see it. I
know who you are, yeah.
Yeah, I know. And so one day when he's being chased, he ends up on a building site and he finds this sword just stuck in one of the sort of concrete blocks on this building site, and he pulls it out. He pulls it out, doesn't know what's going on, but then all of a sudden you have in his garden, there's this big sort of like almost a flaming skeleton that comes out of the ground and comes into his room to try to fight him. And then this really weird kid shows up at the school who is actually Merlin in disguise. And so there's all these things that go on. And I quite like the sort of marrying of the fantasy world with the sort of realistic London world that people have nowadays, where they live in terrace houses and all that. And is even going into, you have a 12-year-old kid who's walking around the streets of London with a sword. And especially in the current climate, hang on a second, how can you get away with that? And it's just like a marrying of different worlds that I really, really enjoy, and I really like the way they put it together. They end up going on a quest which takes them out of London. And I think once they leave London, the film loses its way a bit. It loses steam.
Okay.
And it kind of, you're like, oh, where is this going? What are you doing? It's not as tight and as focused. Like, you know, let's say something like Attack the Block. People sort of say that that's almost kind of like Joel Cornish trying to do a homage to Assault on Precinct 13, for instance. Because that's
great film.
Yeah, that's all tight. It's all in one area. The tension ratchets up and all that. With this, they go off places and they do things, and they go off to Cornwall, and you're like, oh, what? And I think once they leave London, it gives you a lot of time to start questioning exactly what's going on and questioning the story and going, hang on, wait, wouldn't their parents care about this? What's going on? So those bits, I think let the film down a bit, and it keeps. Whenever they have like a bit of momentum going up and something cool's happening, they sort of stop the film almost to do a whole bunch of exposition where someone sits around and goes, well, you do realize that your father left. Oh, well, your father wasn't that bad. Oh, this is good. Well, this is what happened all the way. And you're like, why are you giving me this? Give me the Goonies. Give me the bit where you have all these kids fighting, especially and they have the final big sort of showdown moment where the castle that they are defending, that's under siege, is their school. And so you have all these kids. You have all these kids running around in armor, fighting all these demon hellhounds or whatever it is that they are. And it gets a bit brutal. I mean, the final, how you say, denouement.
Yeah,
is a bit brutal. I was like, ooh, eesh. I mean, the way they get rid of the bad guy, you're like, whoa, hang on, what is the rating of this film? So it's really good. I would give it a 3. I think it could have been a 4 if they didn't have so many talky scenes. If they didn't just have places where it just seemed as if they stopped the story to stand around and talk a bit more about stuff, and you're like, well, that's not really. We want to see the action.
Oh, well, it still sounds promising to me, though. I think I might check that one out because it just sounds intriguing to me.
Yeah, I would still recommend it. I'll still recommend it. I think it's not as great as I was hoping it was going to be, but it's still pretty good. And there is some bad child acting in it. I think the best is a guy called Angus Imrie who plays the young version of Merlin. Patrick Stewart plays the old version of Merlin, but Angus Imrie is brilliant in it. He's just so eccentric and so, like, you know when you see somebody and you see a kid acting and go, oh my god, that's a kid trying to act.
Yeah.
But you just
is he related to Celia Imrie in any way?
I haven't found that out, but he does have similar hair. But
yeah.
So it's like, I haven't found that out yet, but he is by far the standout. The guy who plays Alex as well is quite good. He's actually Andy Serkis's son.
Okay.
So son of Gollum. So yeah, I think he had a good acting teacher at home. But there is some terrible kid acting in it from people who I thought would be better as well. But it's they're just basically like, okay, cool, get it over with, and let's have some more fighting. But yeah, that's what I would say with that.
We just looked up Angus Imrie. We didn't see who his parents were, but he was born on the island, so it's very possible that he connected to Celia Imrie because she lives on the island. Yeah,
Angus Imrie was born 2nd of August 94 on the Isle of Wight, Hampshire.
Was he?
The Isle of Wight. We'll just leave it there.
Yeah. In England as Angus J.
C4 boy. I don't know that give anymore.
Might give him.
Because if he's
son of actor Celia Imrie and Benjamin Whitlow.
He is
Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Bennett in
Pride and Prejudice.
Oh yeah.
Colin Firth.
What in the Colin Firth? I like that. Yeah. That was my favourite.
He was Mr. Bennett. He's a very good Mr. Bennett.
So we have an Isle of Wight link. They should definitely show that film on the island.
He was born on the island. Yeah.
So with that, I think all that is left to say is to look at who has won this week. And
interesting.
Yeah. Who's come up this week? And you know, it was really close. It was really, really close between Netflix and cinema until Happy Death Day to You showed up and
killed it.
It just let the whole side down.
No.
So it comes as no surprise to say that the winner this week is Netflix.
Okay. Tosin, could you not go? What about you? Saw Alita Battle Angel and I think Sharon saw Fighting with the Family, which you saw.
Yeah.
What would just quickly give us what's your rating for Alita Battle Angel?
I really like.
What would you give that?
I really liked Alita Battle Angel. I think I'll give it a 3.5.
3.5. Sharon, how much for Fighting with My Family?
I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a great little film. I've really got behind it and enjoyed it. Funny. Yeah. 4. There you go. So cinema this time then.
No. I'm going to go and see Fighting with My Family because Tosin recommended it. You've recommended it.
I enjoyed that one.
And so I've got to see Fighting with My Family.
That was my film of the
And
week.
I'll let you know next time.
Oh, cool. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So all that's left to say is goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And bye-bye from me.
See you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening.